From the dawn of time when television was created, men were in front and behind the scenes.
You go back to the pioneers of journalism and Walter Cronkite. You go back to those guys. Those were the respected men, and they did the job first. They created the job, so who was to judge who could have done it better? They created it, so we went by their rules.
When I started, there was not as many women. It was basically like an all-men's club. You know, we had the male anchors, whether it was in networks or reporters out in the field.
But then things started to change.
The late 70s, early 80s, you started to see more women go to college, get that degree in mass communications or journalism, and get hired, whether it's on the local level and work their way up to the network level in the field of broadcasting.
Then entered people like Barbara Walters, who put a little different spin on things and started changing the world of journalism.
Barbara Walters moved up to co-host the Today Show when Frank McGee died in 1974. Although Walters made it up the hill before the movement began, she has noticed that the movement has made a real difference in raising the consciousness of the news department in on-air coverage and in creating a general climate of equality. She noticed that younger men had no trouble accepting her as a co-host, while an older man did.
The newsroom is kind of a macho environment, and if you don't thrive in a macho environment, you're not going to thrive in the newsroom. It's very fast moving. It's a little bit cutthroat, and we want to get want to get it on the air first. We want to get it right, certainly, but we want to get there first.
The 60s were the years when women made great stride in television and networks were beginning to look for capable women. However, men still thought women were more suited for lighter topics. Who would see them as a voice of authority?
I think probably at that time it was still women were trying to make their place in the workplace. You know, you had the women's lib and the women's rights of the 70s, and there were more and more women going into the workplace, but I think moving your way up in the workplace was still perhaps a challenge at times. I started off as a weekend news producer, you know, fresh out of school, your first job, beginning job, and I know that there were some instances when some people left, and it took me a while to get up that ladder to move to weekday producing. I think I observed some reporters, perhaps some very fine female reporters who weren't given the good assignments because, the guys can handle this one and that type of thing. And that may have just been a carryover of that old school thinking of some of the older managers of the station, that women hadn't proven themselves yet.
The relationship between sales and production in general, it was pretty much a man's world.
When I started in 1979, there were only a handful of women working in those jobs. There were women working in television, certainly, but not in news and not in production. Very, very few.
There are some instances in which someone may not get hired or promoted due to a prior engagement, such as school or having a family.
When we go back to me, actually, I almost didn't get a promotion because I was going to school at the time. My boss was more worried about me failing in school because I was taking a full-time position, and I was taking full-time credit hours at the time. And so I can look at it from that perspective as to probably why maybe some managers are kind of hesitant on maybe promoting someone that may already have a family, because, or for that matter, someone that may be going to school, because that's that's an extreme workload. But I think it would really just depend on the position.
And in other instances, a demotion may occur.
While working in Arkansas, there was myself and another co-anchor, not my co-anchor, but another anchor. I was the 5 o'clock anchor, she was the 6 and 10 anchor. We became pregnant at the same time. We were a month apart. Weeks, if not just 1 month before we were to leave, we were each told that we were going to be demoted. So I was demoted back down to senior reporter and legal correspondent. She was demoted down to the 5 o'clock. And that was a cut in pay. It was a demotion in every single way. Nothing had changed. It was just, we were pregnant and we were going to be moms, and that didn't seem as marketable to them. They gave us no reason. Of course, they don't have to. It's an at-will state, but they gave us no reason for the demotions.
Nearly half of all employers do not offer paid maternity leave, yet 46% of the total U.S. workforce is comprised of women. 75% of women employed worked full-time and 25% worked part-time. Women are projected to account for 49% of the increase of total U.S. labor growth between 2006 and 2016, and yet women make only 77.5 cents to every dollar men earn.
I think the pioneers who have gone before us have really paved the way to help us raise our glass ceiling, but it's not equal to males yet.
You know, there should be the equality, and I think women are catching up. I'm not saying, and I'm by no means an expert with that, but I think they are making great strides to narrow that gap. But I'm sure in some cases across the country there is still that disparity.
We have a large number of female reporters, news assistants, so it seems to have, we've at least caught up in terms of numbers in news and production. So that's a very large change. When I directed news at KODE in the early 80s, I was the only female director they had. In fact, I was the only female member of the production staff for a good period of time.
The number of women news directors has reached an all-time high of 28%. However, the percentage of women in television news has remained unchanged at 40%. In 2006, 28% of all evening newscast stories in the U.S. were reported by women. However, the guests on Sunday morning talk television shows are predominantly white men. Men outnumbered women by 4-1. Could stereotyping be at work? What about gender bias? John Bark, PhD of New York University, says, stereotypes are categories that have gone too far. When we use stereotypes, we take in the gender, age, the color of the skin of the person before us, and our minds respond with messages that say hostile, stupid, slow, weak. Those qualities aren't out there in the environment. They don't reflect reality. Using Facebook and email, I posted this question to people who work in television. Do you think gender bias exists in TV broadcasting? From Facebook, Philip says, yes and no. I think there are all sorts of biases anywhere you look, and I think that people like to look especially hard at television for biases. So while they're definitely there, I think the real question is, are they overplayed? And if you're trying to connect with an audience in less than 30 seconds, is it such a bad thing to fall back to tried stereotypes? Peter says, in broadcasting of the 1960s to 1980s, yes, gender bias did apply, as a Sony camcorder weighed in at 58 pounds. Jill says it all depends on which demographic the advertisers are trying to reach. KODE reporter Gretchen Bolander says, I believe gender bias does exist in television broadcasting, and in more than one way. It is traditional for stations with two news anchors to pair a male with a female anchor. They are prohibited from restricting job applicants to one sex, but most of the time, that's the way it ends up. It seems to be unrelated to the talent and experience level of applicants who don't meet the gender expectation. The same can be true in reporting staff. If management has determined they want a male reporter, it doesn't really matter how much talent or experience female applicants may have. But the same can be true in reverse. There are times when management has determined to hire a female and male applicants will not get equal consideration.
I think a lot of it's just based on if you can do the job right, and I don't think it matters whether you're male or female, or at least that's from my perspective.
I think whether you're male, you're female, or red, yellow, black, and white, whatever color you are, that shouldn't matter. It really should be who does the best job, with that.
KSN reporter Bonnie Bowman says, I don't think there's a gender bias. Jim and Tony are a perfect example of what I mean. Older gentleman, younger woman. It's a common pairing. I feel women are expected to look and be younger than their male counterparts. I think it has something to do with viewer appeal. Men like looking at a younger lady and admire the older guy, while women identify and want to be the younger lady and trust the older man.
Look at me, for instance. I would rather sit and watch, I'm probably going to sit and watch a younger female in the morning rather than, for instance, some of the people that I know, I don't think Jim Jackson or Dow Quick would be my pick for a morning person. I want some young person that's, going to help me wake up and help me get ready in the morning, and fast-paced show, So I think you got to kind of look at your audience and see who is out there and who's watching, maybe what they want to see.
KODE Chief Meteorologist Ray Foreman says, I think the biggest bias has to do with age. For the male anchors, they can be in their 60s. For the females, anyone past 50 has a hard time finding a job.
Years ago, it used to be a 25-year-old Barbie doll-looking young lady with a 65-year-old male anchor. That was really a strange combination. I mean, that's all you had. You had back, say 30 years ago or even 25 years ago. That was probably the norm. Thank goodness those women, their careers are lasting longer and they're staying in the field of broadcasting longer. So I think it is starting to even out. And like I say, women have made great strides over the years. They do a tremendous job. The capabilities or the opportunities are endless. It's how hard you want to work and devote yourself to your profession.
A good topic that I always like for people to shed light on, because I am, women's rights, and I am always rooting for the underdog. And in this business, I feel like women are the underdog. So I'm always wanting us to do anything to be able to get a leg up and be noticed for what we're worth, not what gender we are.